Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent role-playing game. This week I'm looking at a pretty straightforward tactical RPG called SFD, or Sigma Finite Dungeon. Developed and published by Iceville, it was released on Steam on August 17th, 2018. SFD is a turn-based, isometric tactical RPG set in a randomly generated dungeon. In terms of plot, you journey into the dungeon, hire adventurers, and set out to explore the depths, and eventually defeat the Lich King Aurelius. This may not be the longest review because this is one of those rare games that I've discovered that is not only pretty clear as to whether most people will like it or not just from the footage and a bit of gameplay, but it also has a demo included, so you can actually determine in very short order whether or not the game's for you. But I'm going to give the review a shot anyway. When you start the game, you can select to start in either standard or easy difficulty, and it drops you then right into a randomized dungeon. Each map consists of screens of a single room each, with exits connecting to other rooms, and tiles which may contain a variety of items, obstacles, traps, or enemies, making them up. The starting room lacks enemies and provides a simple treasure to get you started, as well as an equipment shop and an NPC that allows you to hire a random selection of mercenaries. In terms of interface, your adventurer has 2 quick slots, an inventory, and a character info screen, a set of indicators near the top to show you how many troops you have versus how many you can hire, the gold you have on hand, which is used to shop or hire mercenaries, and how much mana you have in order to activate abilities. There's also a mini-map in the lower right corner which can be used to hop from room to room if you're not in combat, allowing you to travel back and forth over a level very swiftly. Your main character has a number of abilities based on their gear and their skill layout, a job that can be changed to allow for more abilities, and a number of stats. Characters can equip 4 items, armor, up to 2 weapons, and an accessory. In terms of stats, a character has a level which increases as they gain experience, skills which may be raised on a level up, strength that determines damage, dex that determines accuracy and dodge rate, intelligence that determines magic damage, action points that govern what a character can do during a turn, hit points which of course determine health, defense and dodge which can help a character avoid attacks and damage, and resists that determine whether a character can outright avoid a special attack of a particular type. These may be altered by equipping gear or getting certain skills at each level up. Both the main character and any mercenaries they hire can advance in this way, although mercenaries are a little bit more limited in their choices. You can always choose to head through the dungeon itself alone, but it's actually pretty advisable to hire mercenaries. They come in a few basic forms, limited by what the NPC who hires them out has in stock. Each NPC comes equipped with some basic gear and takes a one-time charge to hire. They tend to follow basic adventuring classes such as clerics, archers, mages, and so forth. You may only hire 2 at first, but as you level up, you can choose to increase the number of NPCs you're allowed to have in your group as one of the level-up bonuses. Once you've hired a party, you can advance to an adjacent room by moving to any one of the exits. This puts you in the next room, and if it's a combat room, you immediately enter combat. If it's not, you continue the non-combat exploration in that room. Outside of combat, to move to a space or pick up an item, you merely have to click on it. Certain objects can be used by moving into them, and certain objects can also be broken, which may drop additional items or gold. Items can vary between equipable gear, spell scrolls that can be used as a single-use scroll or memorized by certain spellcasters, or even consumables that function once and then vanish. When you enter a combat room, the combat interface starts. In this case, you can switch between any of your active characters to take their turn. A particular character can walk to an area within range, generally outlined in blue, attack based on their weapons, push objects around, set their facing direction, or just wait. Other options may be open to certain characters. For instance, if a character has a weapon that can be thrown equipped, they can throw it. If they are a spellcaster, they can cast a spell or gather their magic, and so on. Generally speaking, each of these actions takes 1 action point, and each character generally has 2 action points, meaning that they can move and attack and use a spell, or so on. Some actions, especially spells or special attacks, may have a cooldown timer, which means that they cannot be used again for a certain number of turns after being used once. Once you've moved your entire party, resolved all of their attacks and abilities, etc., the enemies do the same. At that point, you just rinse and repeat until one side loses. Simple enough, all in all, but the terrain and the certain objects that you can encounter can make battles more complex. For instance, some barrels will explode when damaged, allowing you to damage large groups of enemies when they're clustered about these barrels, and moving onto certain tiles will set off traps. And these traps aren't always targeted towards the triggering tile, so it can actually be useful to set off a trap sometimes if it'll catch an enemy in its effect range. After the battle's done, you'll be offered one of two options, usually bonus experience on top of whatever you've earned, plus either gold or an item, although sometimes this can vary. For instance, you'll occasionally be offered to heal your entire party at once, which can be important if you don't have a healer, since you don't automatically heal otherwise, and you'll need to use potions or skills to top your hit points up between battles. Once a battle's over, you can run around in exploration mode in case any other objects merit investigating within the room after you've done. Once you gain enough experience, you level up. With your mercenaries, this is done automatically, with skills automatically learned based on what job they have. Mercenaries are also more limited in what jobs that they can take. For instance, a novice archer can only become an archer, and only after they hit level 4, while your main character can change into a number of different jobs as mentioned above, although they are also limited by level. The hero also gets some sort of stat boost each level and may choose another ability, which may range from new spells to attack modes to different stat boosts. Each floor does have a boss creature, which is a bit more challenging than the prior creatures, and then a stairway down to the next floor. Aside from that, it is utter simplicity, taking all of these elements and just developing them further as you go along, but it's surprisingly fun even for how straightforward it is. I will say that the randomization factor does mean that some runs will necessarily be easier than others, but the game scales readily enough that falling prey to the RNG isn't really too big of an obstacle, at least in my experience. If this sounds like it's a good time, then chances are good you'll probably want to check it out. Whereas if nothing I've said so far has interested you, then the game really won't do much to sell itself. Beyond the gameplay, the game does use a simplified pixel graphics aesthetic that may throw some people off if they don't like that sort of thing, but it's reasonably well done and responsive for what it is. The sound effects give a decent amount of feedback for the game, although in terms of the soundtrack, it's really just ambient dungeon sounds. I didn't really hear anything, in terms of music. You can play it via the mouse or via keyboard shortcuts, or some combination of the two for quick effect. Indeed, it seems like the interface is taken from some sort of mobile game. Now, I'm not sure if it is a mobile port as of this recording. I haven't really checked. I probably should have. But it doesn't stand out enough to really hinder the game, in my opinion, if it is. All in all, for the price involved, it's a pretty solid little tactical RPG with just enough character advancement and decision points to make them feel meaningful. The developer seems to have been working on it recently as well, making tweaks and improvements here and there, as evidenced by the fact that another patch was rolled out even in the time it took me between grabbing the footage for writing the script and putting the video out. So if an active developer is a plus, there is that, at least for now. And on that note, I'm going to leave it at that. I'll put a link to the store page where you can check it out in the description below. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, SFD. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you've got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. If you're feeling particularly generous, I do have a Patreon at patreon.com/RPGcrawler that goes towards supporting this channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.